Welcome everyone to a brand new episode on Hyperbolic Orbits Podcast. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with someone whose work and the talks always leave the audience with a sense of hope for a better world. We have with us today Dr. Tiffany Vora, who is a visionary in biotechnology and innovation, dedicated to using technology to shape a better future. As faculty and the Singularity Fellow in Biotechnology at Singularity University, as well as faculty at Biotech University, she brings over 20 years of expertise to the forefront of global conversations on health, biotech, and space. She also serves as a non-resident fellow at the Atlantic Council's Geotech Center and VP of Innovation Partnerships at Explore Mars, a nonprofit pursuing a sustainable human presence on Mars in the 2030s. With a PhD in molecular biology from Princeton, Dr. Tiffany has an extensive background in molecular biology, entrepreneurship, and education, including previous roles at Stanford and the American University in Cairo. Her TEDx talks, workshops, and content for organizations like YPO and Singularity University have reached over 100,000 people worldwide, sparking discussions on ethics, biotech, and humanity's future on Earth and beyond. She's particularly excited to support women and other underrepresented groups as they explore STEM careers. It's such a pleasure for us to welcome you here today, Dr. Tiffany. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
All right. We want to hear a lot about your work, but before that, I'm very interested in knowing about the glorious years of your education. You had studied at such prestigious institutions. So how did this journey in molecular biology start?
Well, I'm very lucky in that my parents really believed in education for both my brother and for me from when we were very, very young. My father is actually from Mumbai, and he emigrated to the United States in the 1960s. So he came from a strong educational background too. So it was really important to my parents that we focused on our studies. So for me, for a very long time, that meant I thought I was going to be a chemist like my father. And so I went all through high school really caring about STEM. I'm really interested in the natural world and how the world around me works. I thought chemistry was the perfect way to explore all of that. And it was for quite a number of years. But then when I got to college, to university, I went to New York University. I started realizing that I had a lot of interest in the living world around me. And at the time, I thought that meant being a doctor. Being a medical doctor was sort of the only way I knew that it was possible to look at the living world. But as I got deeper into my studies at NYU, I studied genetics, I joined a genetics lab, and I realized that I was starting to be more interested in the things people didn't know than in the things that they did know. And so that moved me away from medical school and instead looked me towards being more of a research scientist. My family was not very happy about that change, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. So I went to Princeton to study molecular biology. That was just after I had worked for a bit at a pharmaceutical company. So I realized I was interested in technology development, and not technology for technology's sake, but technology in pursuit of something. And in this case, it was in knowledge. And, this was a while ago now. So I was in my PhD studies right at the beginning of the systems biology revolution. So I came to biology as an undergrad. I only needed to multiply basically in order to do biology. And then suddenly I was inventing these techniques that required not just pretty advanced mathematics in order to understand the data I was gathering, but I had to be able to code in order to get those analyses done. And again, this was just long enough ago that you didn't have to know how to code to be a biologist. And so I suddenly had to learn to code very quickly when I was in graduate school. And I will tell you a secret. I'm still not a great coder. I can do it, but I am not a natural at it the way I see other coders. And now with tools like ChatGPT, we can help close that gap, which is wonderful for me. But that was how I learned to do things kind of fast and the hard way, because there was no one else to solve the problem for me. I had to solve it. That's the joy and the terror of being a research scientist, right? So after I finished my PhD at Princeton, I took a job as a professor at the American University in Cairo. This was just before the revolution in Egypt. So I lived in Cairo for a bit, worked at the university, helped teach scientific thinking to undergraduates across the university, helped them put together a program in computational biology and genomics. And then I left Egypt and I came back to the United States, and I moved to Silicon Valley in California. And that's when I really got interested in the innovation ecosystem. I started working as a science communicator, helping scientists tell their stories either to other scientists or to the general public. And then I got more involved in technology, entrepreneurship. I took a role at Singularity University as a full-time faculty member there. And just fast forward to today now, after the pandemic, when things got interesting again, I work as a subject matter expert for a variety of organizations who are interested in understanding how technology is disrupting not only their industry, but everything about us, our lives as individuals, our family lives, our social lives, and I'm sure we'll talk about this for space at the whole species level, right? What does it mean to be human? How do we use technology to enhance those things? What should we be worried about? And I think there's so much promise in the future, but that means we have to be making choices today, and we need to be having hard conversations today. And so that's the interface that I work at, not just thinking about technology, particularly biotechnologies, but what do we actually want those tech to do for us? And what do we want to be in the future? Who do we want to be? And that's why I'm so excited about the space industry and happy to tell you more about my experience with space as well.
That's so wonderful. I remember watching a talk of yours where you were emphasizing that how girls need to be better coders. We should start learning to code at an early age, even if you are not in a field that is so involved with coding. So thank you for sharing that. A lot of your talks, I've learned a lot about digital biology from your talks. And what I wanted to ask you is, you're very much at the intersection of, let's say, biotech and innovation, and you're very optimistic about the role it's going to play in the future. So what do you think, if you can tell us, in the field of, let's say, health, food, and space, these three, what kind of role can biotech play for our future?
So what's really exciting about biotechnology at this moment is that the boundaries between the living world and the non-living world are breaking down. So today we are empowered to be using biological systems the way that we would previously have thought we could only do with technological systems, so silicon-based systems. So we're getting better and better at programming life to do the things that we want. So digital biology is basically a framework that says, let's look at life as information and as agents that execute that information. So you could think of that as software and hardware. And in the case of life on Earth, the software is DNA, and the hardware is our physical bodies, or anything physical that's alive, right? Anything from bacteria all the way up to plants and animals. So that's a really amazing moment. And I mean, I have to tell you, I think if you're listening to me on audio, you might not be able to see the big smile I have on my face. But man, this is the most interesting time in all of human history to have been a biologist. I feel so lucky to be alive during this time and working in this field at this moment, because the amount of things that have become possible thanks to our tools becoming cheaper, faster, more powerful, more digitized. It's just unbelievable. And now in the last couple of years, you add AI onto that mix, and then everything starts to open up. And you might have noticed that this year's Nobel Prize in chemistry went to folks who had written algorithms for protein design, right? A gentleman at the University of Washington, as well as some folks at Google DeepMind who made the AlphaFold algorithm, which, I can say it in one sentence, predicts a protein's structure from its sequence, which was the holy grail of molecular biology for 100 years. It used to take people 8 or 10 years to make that step. And now there's a database freely available online that has predictions for every protein known to man. That's more than 200 million of them, as well as all other types of biological molecules. And now there's software to help you design new molecules yourself that have biological function. That's crazy. It's crazy and it's amazing. And so you asked for health and food and space. So what are some ways we could see this happen? So in health, there's all kinds of great applications, from figuring out how to prevent genetic disease from people at all. You've even seen some of the amazing breakthroughs that happened, the way we got to our vaccines so quickly during the COVID-19 pandemic. I can't tell you how surprising and amazing that was, to go from the first sequence of the virus to a vaccine being in people's arms within a year. That is amazing, amazing. And that's just the beginning of what we should expect to see from these biological technologies that use our body as the hardware that boots up some kind of software. So whether it's fighting infectious disease, fighting cancer, or even preventing our bodies from getting a disease that we are genetically predisposed to have. All of this stuff is possible now. The first gene editing based medicine for sickle cell disease was approved last year. If you are ever feeling bad about humanity, go watch the videos of the patients who have undergone that cure, not a treatment, a cure. Talk about what it has done to their lives. I mean, it's absolutely astonishing. So with health, I would say the sky's the limit at this point for predictive, personalized, and preventive health. Food is another really exciting area for innovation using these technologies. So on the one hand, I believe that these biotechnologies, particularly our genetic technologies, are probably the most powerful tools we will have in order to protect our food systems from climate change. I cannot overstate how much danger we are in with our food system production for the next 30 to 50 years because of climate change. These tools are going to be a big part of helping us have enough healthy, clean, nutritious food for enough people around the world. So I would definitely keep your eyes open for that. On a more fun level, we're also now able to make new flavors, new textures, we can resurrect plants that have gone extinct in the past, or food items that have gone extinct in the past. You might have seen not too long ago, there was a PR stunt, but still fun, where folks made a meatball out of mammoth cells. So humans got to eat, well, could have eaten mammoth for the first time in a few thousand years. Like, that's fun. But the fun, what goes more than fun, is saying that 90% of the calories in our food system come from 15 species. That is an incredibly precarious system. So what if we could use these tools in order to diversify the plants and animals that we use for food in order to be more robust against future shocks, whether it's climate change or, imagine if there had been a COVID for corn. That would be a disaster, right? And so these tech, I think, are really, really key to that. And we should come back to the food issue when we talk about space, because I also think these technologies are how, when humans are living for long periods of time off Earth, or maybe never even coming to Earth, you don't want to just eat gross stuff in a pouch, right? Like, food means something to us. It's how we express culture. It involves pleasure and connection with other people. And I think this tech is going to help us maintain that place for food in human culture moving forward. And then you asked me about space. So I teased a few things, but just think about some of the big issues with space. You've got a really, really long way to go. If you forget something, you can't just get it delivered to you. You have to either take everything with you or make it when you're there. And both of those challenges, the take and the make challenges, I think biology has a lot to offer there, in terms of, whether it's making an astropharmacy like Lynn Rothschild wants to do, where instead of trying to take every single medication with you, you have a library of DNA sequences, which, by the way, are tiny, 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 tiny. You can take them all with you. And then when you get there, if you need a biological made, you have a system for that using synthetic biology to make on demand exactly the medication that you need. So it's fresh, it's tailored to exactly what you need, and it didn't weigh that much to take it with you, right? We're also seeing biotech in space for fuel, for materials, for living sensors to understand maybe how much radiation damage an astronaut has been exposed to. There are so many amazing applications for biotech in space. And if you want to look even further out and get even crazier about it, remember, life on Earth, including us, we evolved for Earth's ecosystems. We did not evolve to live on the moon. We didn't evolve to live on Mars. We didn't evolve to live in space stations. So are there ways that we could tune the fundamental biology of humans, say at the DNA level, in order to make us better suited for space? The answer seems to be yes, but you have a lot of ethical questions about that. But I know a few ethicists who say, actually, we are absolutely required to do that, because otherwise we're sending humans off to space knowing they're going to be sick, right? So all kinds of interesting questions. Some of these have been explored in great science fiction stories like Seven Eves or The Expanse, or some other ones where this idea about influencing the future of human evolution in order to make us better suited for space, we're getting to the point where we may actually be able to do that quite soon if we think it's ethical.
Wow, that's wonderful. Just that food part in space, as you were speaking, I just recalled being in some of the analog missions. And I felt so bad being in the planning team and thinking that, oh my God, these analog astronauts have to, even though these are short duration missions, still having to repeat the same food. What kind of psychological effect is they're going to have on them? And I'm glad.
Yeah. So I did 3 analog Mars missions, 2 in the Utah desert and 1 in the high Canadian Arctic, all with the Mars Society. And man, food is so important on those analog missions. And we also know this from other communities on Earth, whether it's folks overwintering in Antarctica, whether it's folks on a nuclear submarine. All food takes on this outsized role in culture and psychology, how you view yourself, how you relate to others. It would be ridiculous to ignore that, especially since we know our astronauts who are in these going to be, at least for the foreseeable future, in small communities, small isolated communities. When you're in a small community, everything becomes magnified. Every interpersonal reaction becomes magnified. Chocolate helps. I'm not going to lie, chocolate helps just a little bit, right? Or something that reminds you of home when you're cold and you're lonely and your body's breaking down, right? Being able to have that is a real source of tangible pleasure that is not a waste of time. It's not a bonus. It's how we not just survive but thrive when we're trying to do something really, really hard.
Absolutely. I mean, we are thinking of settling on Mars, and we still have got to figure out a lot of things. And that brings me to my next question: your role as the VP of Innovation Partnerships at Explore Mars. So you do a lot of work connecting organizations, government organizations, with aerospace industry. And how do you foster these collaborations, and what kind of role do you see the aerospace industry, or specifically the space industry, playing in addressing some of the global challenges that we face right now?
Today is a really exciting time for this, with the humans return to the moon and then onto Mars in the next decade. So as you mentioned, I work with a wonderful nonprofit called Explore Mars, which is acting to see a sustainable human presence on the red planet in the 2030s. And so you're right that government and the traditional aerospace industry are super important players in this, right? National space agencies are often the first customer or the only customer for a lot of the innovations that we're going to need in order to get us, let's talk about Mars, to get us to Mars. But one thing that I really value about our organization and the role that I'm honored to play in it is that I actually believe that the space industry of the future, let's say 30 years from now, is not just going to be aerospace companies. It's going to be food companies and healthcare companies and energy companies and construction companies and everything companies. And you're going to have all kinds of jobs working in the space ecosystem. Remember, the vast majority of people who work in the space industry do not go to space, right? It's not, we focus on the astronauts and we focus on the engineers. But there are electricians and plumbers and welders and machinists today working. And someday soon there will be facilities managers and nurses and all kinds of folks who are going to be supporting life in space in really interesting ways. So my job is to not only welcome in the aerospace primes and their decades of experience, not only to welcome in smarter new space companies or startups, whether they're small or medium sized, who are starting to play in the space field, but to say to a whole bunch of other companies, hey, you know how you don't think you're a space company yet? I think you will be. I think you'll be a space company in 20 or 30 years. So come into our community, meet folks who have some experience, meet folks who are excited about the things that you're building today, and let's together build a vision for the next 20, 30, 50 years, where once there is a sizable market in space, how are you going to sell into that market, right? What's your product? What's your service? And I believe very strongly that investing in space makes life on Earth better. Whether that's technological development, whether it's more jobs and more prosperity, whether it's more educational opportunities, every dollar we spend in space has impact here on Earth. It's not a choice. We don't have to choose between space and Earth. That's a false choice. And so that's where I think the innovation partnerships role is the most exciting for me. And plus, think about your job, right? I bet every person you talk to on this podcast has a huge smile on their face while they're talking about space, right? Space is awesome. And I would love to have so many more people in our community and being excited about building the future together starting today.
I'm so happy and the happiest right now you mentioned this, because the majority of the questions that I get is, I am not from an aerospace engineering background. Can I still work in space? I don't want to be an astronaut. Can I still work in space? Thank you so much for explaining this so
Yes,
beautifully.
you can. Yes, you can. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. And
Yeah,
that's what's exciting. We get to build these jobs now, right? If you are just graduating university or just finishing your graduate work or something like that, you have a chance to build a role that could become the prototype for how we actually do this work in space. That's a really exciting opportunity. I mean, that's more than a once in a generation opportunity. That might be more in a species history opportunity. This is the moment.
absolutely. Thank you. And now the next question is not just from me. Earlier this year, I ran a micro internship with some wonderful high school kids from an online school called School of Humanity. And we did the project on a sustainable habitat on Mars. And some of the questions I got from the kids, I mean, I was blown away, and I'd never thought about those before. And I would like to ask you on behalf of them is that, uh,
Sure,
you also,
sure. Let's play.
thank you. A lot of the conversations that you get involved in, let's say as your work with humans in deep space, is that you're looking for humanity to spread out into outer space. You're talking about taking humanity to Earth and beyond. So, how do you think we can execute this while keeping sustainability in mind?
Mhm. So I think the first most important thing is going to be mindset here. So we have been so lucky, and I mean lucky in the cosmic sense, that for 100,000 years, humans have had this gorgeous, amazing, wonderful planet that has given and given and given and given when it comes to resources. And so, because we were always surrounded by this, we did not do a good job of thinking long term about what if it runs out. In space, you don't have that luxury. From day zero, you have to be thinking, what are the inputs? What are the outputs? And how do I join them together, right? And I think of this as both a challenge and an opportunity. So sustainability, I mean it literally in the sense that we can go on. It can go on. Life can go on. We have made so many mistakes on Earth. We continue to make so many mistakes. And it's just shocking to me, this idea, again, a false choice, that people say, well, my business can't afford to be sustainable, right? It's too expensive. And I'm like, who do you think you're going to sell to if the ecosystem collapses, or if there are massive wildfires, or the sea levels rise and destroy all the coastal cities? Who do you think is going to be buying the widget that you're selling? It doesn't make any sense to me. So space, in my mind, is the ultimate manifestation of that issue, because you don't have any choices, right? We cannot go to Mars, dig up oil, and use petrochemicals in order to run our energy and to make plastics. There isn't any. There's no oil. You can't do it. So what are the other options that on Earth you would have trouble selling because they're expensive at first, they're new, which freaks people out, and it threatens current jobs and systems that we have on Earth today? There are no oil or coal jobs on Mars to threaten. So you have a chance to build from the ground up. And to me, that's I don't know if that's our second chance, our third chance, what it is, but we've got another chance to get this right. And in Tiffany's Magic Fantasyland, what works in space, the mindsets, the tools, the processes, the systems, the governance, could, maybe not in my lifetime, but be ported back to Earth to say, hey, look, we did this experiment. It seems to be working better. Let's bring some of that back home. That is what I dream about. And again, the idea is this sustainability, right? Keeping us going on. And when we talk about Earth, we're not just talking about humans, we're talking about all the amazing, beautiful, precious, weird, wonderful life that lives on our planet, that as far as we know exists nowhere else in the entire universe. That's crazy, right? And so this is a moment where we have the chance to turn the tide, not just for our planet, but for any planets that humans might go to in the future. That's terrifying, but it's also a really magical moment that we stand in.
Yes, very recently I attended a conference in India, and India has over 400 space startups right now.
Mm.
And I met a wonderful man who was trying to explain to the startup founders that how they have to become sustainable, that it's not a choice, and how it's like you explained, it's a two-way street. You go to space, you do this, and then you bring that mindset home. There's nothing more wonderful than that. So I'm very happy to hear this from you. The next is that I started my career in the age of startups, in the age of space startups, to be honest, the new space era. And I've been involved with many of them who are trying to build beautiful products, bring lots of innovation to the industry. But I just don't want to focus on just on the space startups. What I want to know from you is, you mentor a lot of startups as well. What kind of advice do you have for entrepreneurs right now, so that they can harness technology to solve some of the humanity's grand challenges that we have?
Yes. So I think this will apply especially to our space entrepreneurs, but to anyone tackling any great big challenge. So when you are an entrepreneur, you don't become an entrepreneur because it's easy, right? You do it because you are so consumed by the idea that you are going to be the one to solve this problem, that it will take over your life. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a serial entrepreneur myself. Like it has to be worth it. So you have this North Star vision of what you want to accomplish in 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, whatever time scale it's going to take for you to solve this grand challenge. Let's say it's getting humans to be a multiplanetary species. You have to figure out what the path is to get there in a way that you are going to be continuously delivering value here on Earth all the way through, right? So the classic example of someone who thinks like this is Elon Musk. If you look at Elon Musk's businesses, all of them point to a future in which humans are living on Mars, let's say, for example. So Tesla, that's automated vehicles, the battery work that he does, right? You've got all kinds of work in autonomous. You've got the Boring Company for drilling huge holes, right? For humans to live underground in Mars, to be away from radiation. Then, of course, you've got SpaceX driving the whole thing to make it easy to get these things to space and to have an affordable ecosystem happening in space at the time. Each one of those businesses, the idea has to be the business must be delivering value before them. So Tesla's delivering value now. Some of these battery things are delivering value now. When will Neuralink deliver value? I don't know. I have no idea. But that's going to be part of this. So even if you are a space startup and you are really excited about your business model, how it's going to be performing 25 years from now, ask yourself, how am I going to deliver value here on Earth within the next quarter? And then how am I going to keep delivering that? So let me give you an example of a company that I work with. I'm very proud to work with. It's called Astrius. It is a company focused on human performance. And so our founder, Shireen Reza, had originally designed the product to be for astronauts, because astronauts have all of these performance issues with micronutrients and cognitive performance. Just being in space is just so hard, right? And on top of that, when you're in space, because of fluid shifts in the body and some various other things, you basically lose your capacity to taste. That's why astronauts are famous for dumping hot sauce on everything, right? Because you can't taste anything, you can't smell anything. Also, apparently that's a good thing because everything is very stinky. But like, there's this opportunity, she realized, to deliver truly delicious food in a way that was pleasurable, but that would also deliver all your daily micronutrients as well as nootropics for cognitive enhancement. And so that's the product that she made. So proud. Astronauts love it. We had astronauts join the team. And then, the question though is, well, if there's only like 6 people in space right now, how do you keep the business alive in order to get to the point where there are thousands of people in space who are going to eat your product, right? And so that's why she worked on a pivot here on Earth to be looking at athletes, cyclists, runners, gamers, neurosurgeons, all of these folks who aren't astronauts, but are still really high performing individuals, and use that to sustain and grow the business as we're waiting for more and more people to come into space. And then we're positioned to be the go-to space food product once there's enough people up there who want to eat it, right? So that's, I think, my big recommendation. If you are trying to raise capital as an entrepreneur, a space entrepreneur, you have got to be able to show venture capitalists that you are going to give them a return on investment in the near term. It is a rare VC who is in it for 30 years. That's why we have space agencies, right? That's why we have governments. And so there's this interesting moment where a business becomes viable enough that they no longer have to rely on a government agency or a national space agency to fund a moonshot. Now, once venture capital can come in, it's because they're saying there's a viable market for this here within a reasonable span of time. And that's a really exciting shift. So if you are an entrepreneur, you got to wear both hats at the same time, the long-term vision and the short-term vision. Good luck, my friends. You'll be able to find out how to reach me to talk about it, but there are folks out there who can help you with this. It's a hard challenge. Think about it. Most companies don't have to have the 30-year plan and the 3-month plan, right? They can, but having that long-term value is how you're going to have a massive transformational impact on the world. It's how you're going to leave a legacy, and it's how you're going to get these sustainability goals in, because you're already doing the big hard things.
Wow, I love this. I think it's very, very important advice for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially, like you said, the space domain. I see a lot of them talking about having no market demand and how many rockets and satellites are going to build. So having this short-term goal, generating that revenue stream, it's a brilliant example that you give. And yes, I have heard several talks about Astrias. I love the products and how they talked about the different sauces and coming up with the products. It's very, I would say, innovation wise, it's marvelous. So thank you for sharing that. And before I let you go, I have this one question that I always wanted to ask you, is that about your Antarctica expedition. I really want to hear the story, and of course a little bit about your work, the company, on sustainability clothing, if you could please share with.
Yeah, for sure. So this is part of an initiative that I was lucky enough to join a few years ago called the Homeward Bound initiative. And Homeward Bound is an international community of women and non-binary people with STEM backgrounds who want to grow their leadership practice so that they can be in the room where decisions that impact sustainability are being made. So I had found out about this program several years ago, many years ago actually, and my boss at the time had said, "Well, please don't, please don't do this. Like, we need you here at the company." And I was like, "All right." But once I transitioned out of that full corporate role, I thought, I still want to do this. I still want to grow my leadership practice. I still want to be part of this community. And oh, hey, I still want to go to Antarctica. Since I mentioned to you, I'd done a Mars analog up near the North Pole, I wanted to go south as well, just as like a human bucket list life goal. So I'll never forget this. In 2020, just as lockdown started, I was giving my first big virtual talk. There were 24,000 people on the webinar, which was quite exciting. And I realized I had all my makeup on. Why didn't I go ahead and shoot my application video for this Homeward Bound leadership program? So I always know exactly when it was because I had my makeup on. That's what I remember. So I shot my application video, told them why I wanted to be part of this community and what my goals were and how my experience could help the community. And then I was accepted into the program. And in 2021, I joined a cohort of another 100 women who were studying together doing this leadership journey and learning more about Antarctica, learning more about sustainability science. And what was really cool was that we had people, first of all, from all different types of STEM backgrounds. So lots of biologists like me, but also chemists and engineers and AI experts and environmental scientists and all medical doctors, like all along the STEM framework. And then we also had people at every career stage you could picture, from having just finished their PhD into, oh, I just retired from running a government. I'm looking for the next challenge. So this huge spectrum range of folks. And so we spent the year working together on building our leadership practice in really interesting ways. And then the capstone experience for the course was going to Antarctica together for 3 weeks and basically doing a leadership deep dive in the most fragile ecosystem on Earth. Because the idea is, if you want to have a lifelong motivation to fighting the path that we're going down of climate catastrophe, don't kid yourself, that's what we're looking at, then let's get to the place where the place itself can be a teacher and a motivator for this lifelong journey. So unfortunately, in 2021, we weren't able to go down because of the pandemic. 2022 still couldn't go down. So 2023 was when I finally got to get on my ship. And actually, so you and I are having this conversation on November 13th, 2024. Exactly a year ago, I had just gotten on the ship. So every day I'm like looking at my pictures, and on our WhatsApp group, people are posting pictures every day. Here's what we were doing a year ago. So I spent about 3.5 weeks down in around Antarctica and the nearby area on a ship with just 100 astonishingly, I don't even have the words, accomplished, educated, intelligent, heartfelt, ambitious, like just these amazing people who got together in order to say, we think the world can be different and we're going to be the people that make that happen. And it was fantastic. And in the last year, lots of projects have come out of that journey. A project that I was pleased and proud and humbled to be part of was a group of us got together and wrote a policy paper about the sustainability impacts of AI, not using AI for sustainability, but what is the carbon emission, the energy usage, the water emission, all of these things that go into using these chatbots that we use all the time and don't even think about, but have massive sustainability issues with them, right? Just the amount of electricity that these models use in order to train them is unbelievable and not sustainable, by the way. Like, there's just not enough electricity. So we put this paper out back in the summer, and our idea was just to shine a light on this, not saying stop using AI. We'll never say that, right? But rather, when you, a business, are designing your AI initiative, from day zero, you need to be thinking about, Where's the energy going to come from? Where's the carbon going to go? All of these things. It's not a nice to have. It's not a bonus. Like, this is the way we need to be doing business in the future. And that project was started one afternoon on the ship. I still have the photos on my phone from our first brainstorming session. So this is the kind of thing I expect to see in the future moving forward. And we also care a lot about getting young people excited about joining us on this quest and opening their eyes to the beauty and fragility of our gorgeous, amazing planet, and how each one of us can decide to step up and make a difference. Not the same way as each other. We all get to do it differently, but now is the moment to raise your hand and say, I'm part of a solution. Also,
Wow.
penguins. There were so many penguins. Penguins are great.
I was just going to ask, mention something about penguins. No, but thank you. This is why I say, a lot of speakers inspire, and a lot of speakers take you to that level where you get completely fascinated. And I've always thought that you are one of them for me. One of my favorite science communicators. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Any last words you have for us?
I just want to invite folks, if you've listened to this podcast, reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn. Let me know that you listened to this show so that we can connect. You can also find me on my website, tiffanyvora.com. I've got a newsletter that I'm about to launch, so you can pre-register for that and get some thoughts from me in your inbox a few times a month. I think this is such an amazing moment that we're in. We can build the future together starting today, and I hope you'll come join me on that journey.
I think I delivered on the promise of that Dr. Tiffany's talk is always going to leave you with a sense of hope. Thank you so much. I feel, I would say, energized, and I'm very optimistic right now. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us today. And I will put Dr. Tiffany's website as well as our Space Careers Mastermind community link in the comments. Please join us for more insights on space technology, and stay subscribed to this channel because we're going to have many more wonderful guests on this podcast. Thank you so much, Dr. Tiffany, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.